Hello, and welcome. If I say, Knights Templar, what comes to mind? Probably warrior monks, the Holy Grail, the Crusades. Swords, shields, and desert fortresses. But what if I told you that's only half the story? What if I told you their most powerful weapon wasn't the sword, but an idea? An idea so powerful it created the world's first international banking system, and so dangerous, it cost them everything. Forget the legends for a moment. The true story of the Templars isn't a tale of mystical relics, it's a financial thriller. It's the story of how a small band of knights became wealthier than entire nations, running a financial empire that stretched from London to Jerusalem. And how, in a single night, it all vanished. This isn't just the story of their fall, it's the story of their secret blueprint to create the first global bank. It all begins in the year 1119. The First Crusade has just ended. Jerusalem is in Christian hands, but the journey to get there is a nightmare. The roads are infested with bandits, the seas are full of pirates. Pilgrims who set out with their life savings often never reached their destination, or they arrived with nothing. In the midst of this chaos, 9 French knights, led by Hugues de Payens, approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem with a radical proposal. Their mission, to protect the pilgrims. The king granted them headquarters in a wing of his palace, built on the ruins of the Temple of Solomon. From this, they took their name, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. The Templars. At first, they were so poor, legend says 2 knights had to share a single horse. But they quickly realized there was a bigger problem than physical security. How could pilgrims travel thousands of miles without carrying gold and silver, risking robbery at every turn? The solution they devised wasn't a better weapon or a stronger fortress. It was a piece of parchment. This, my friends, was the world's first true traveler's check system. A pilgrim could deposit his money at a Templar preceptory in London or Paris. In return, he received a letter of credit, a document with a cipher code that only the Templars could read. He could then travel light and, upon arrival in Jerusalem, present the letter at another preceptory and withdraw his funds, minus a small fee. It was simple. It was genius. And it was revolutionary. They had solved the single greatest problem of medieval travel and, without knowing it, had just laid the foundation of their financial empire. The idea took off. The Templars weren't just trustworthy, they were endorsed by the Pope himself. In 1139, Pope Innocent II issued a papal bull that made them immune to all local laws. They paid no taxes, could cross any border freely, and answered only to the Pope. Imagine a modern corporation that pays no taxes, answers to no national government, and has a license to operate everywhere. That was the scale of their power. Within decades, their network spanned all of Christendom. They owned land, farms, vineyards, mills. They operated their own fleet of ships. But their real business was money. They became the bankers for kings, queens, and popes. King Philip II of France used the Paris Temple as his royal treasury. King John of England stored the crown jewels there. If a king needed to finance a war, he went to the Templars. If a noble was leaving for a crusade, he entrusted his entire estate to their management. They became the central hub of the European economy, a combination of a global investment bank, a trust fund, and the Federal Reserve. And it made them unbelievably wealthy. But it also made them a target. Enter our antagonist, King Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair. Philip was ambitious, ruthless, and most importantly, he was perpetually broke. He had fought a costly war with England and he needed cash. Desperately. And who was his single biggest creditor? You guessed it. The Knights Templar. Philip no longer saw the Templars as a holy order, but as a state within a state. An immensely powerful and wealthy entity that he could not control, and to whom he owed a massive debt. His solution was not to renegotiate that debt. It was to eliminate the creditor. Working in absolute secrecy with his chief minister, Guillaume de Nogaret, Philip orchestrated a plan of shocking precision and brutality. For months, royal agents fanned out across France carrying sealed letters, with orders to be opened only at dawn on one specific day. That day was Friday, October 13, 1307. The charges? Heresy, idolatry, spitting on the cross, and worshipping a pagan idol named Baphomet. Shocking accusations, designed to destroy their reputation and justify the unthinkable. At dawn, the doors of every Templar preceptory in France were smashed in. Hundreds of knights, including the Grand Master Jacques de Molay, were arrested, chained, and thrown into dungeons. Their system, built over 2 centuries, had been decapitated in a matter of hours. What followed was a show trial. Under torture, many Templars confessed to crimes they never committed. Pope Clement V, who was essentially a political captive of Philip, initially protested but eventually buckled under the pressure, dissolving the order entirely in 1312. The Templars' fate was sealed. Jacques de Molay, after retracting his forced confession, was burned at the stake in Paris in 1314. Legend says that from the flames, he cursed both King Philip and Pope Clement, predicting their deaths within a year. Both men were dead within months. And the Templar treasure? Philip seized all their assets in France, but he found far less liquid wealth than he expected. The bulk of their cash, along with their naval fleet docked at La Rochelle, had vanished just days before the arrests. To this day, no one knows where it went. Officially, the Templars' properties outside of France were transferred to another order, the Knights Hospitaller. But this fix was a disaster. The Hospitallers were soldiers, not bankers. The sophisticated system of credit and finance that had lubricated the European economy for nearly 200 years was shattered. Europe was plunged into a period of financial instability. Philip's plan had worked for him, but he had broken the system for everyone else. This story, from 700 years ago, is shockingly modern. Think about it. A supranational organization, managing huge flows of capital, that answers to no single government. Does that sound familiar? It's not far from the concept of a too-big-to-fail bank or a global payment network like SWIFT. The fall of the Templars is the oldest and most brutal example of sovereign risk, when a government decides that a financial institution has become too powerful or inconvenient, and uses its full authority to dismantle it. It's a pattern we have seen again and again. When political power feels threatened by financial power, the rules of the game can change overnight. The shocking data point isn't just their wealth, but the speed and coordination of their destruction. In an age with no internet or telephones, one king executed a perfectly synchronized, nationwide takedown of the world's largest financial organization. It's a terrifying reminder of how fragile any system can be, no matter how powerful it seems. So, what does the true story of the Templars' secret blueprint leave us with? First, innovation is born from necessity. They built global finance not out of greed, but to solve a real, life-threatening problem. Second, too big to fail is a myth. When you become that powerful, you don't become too big to fail, you become too big to be ignored. Third, the line between state power and financial power has always been thin and dangerous. The Templars are the ultimate case study of what happens when that line is crossed. The question that hangs in the air, 700 years later, is this: what happens when a global financial system, with all its rules, its knowledge and its secrets, is destroyed overnight? Where does all that wealth, and more importantly, all that knowledge, go? Perhaps the real Templar treasure wasn't gold, but the blueprint for their system itself. An idea that, maybe, never truly disappeared. What do you think? Where did the Templar fleet and their treasure go? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if these deep dives into history, power, and finance are what you love, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.